Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-affleck.
And it's time for...
School's back after summer. Ooh, UnSpun.
Very musical, George.
I thought that McLean always loves it when I sing, our managing editor. So that one goes out to, this hit goes out to McLean from the Orca.
You're just trying to lighten it up because we're all a little bit tense about back to school, aren't we?
Well, we're happy, we're confused, I'm a bit lost on this one. I know you were doing a lot of stuff this morning on NW, so maybe you can update me, because frankly, as a parent, you have a kid going into grade 7, yours is going into grade 8. It's quite different, I think, for the kid versus your kid.
It is.
And actually, to be honest, I know that there's, I just am happy it's going back in general at all.
Let me give you some intel from this morning. We did have Superintendent Suzanne Hoffman, Superintendent of the Vancouver School Board, was on. Yesterday, we spoke with the president of the Surrey Teachers Union, just to kind of get sort of a take on what they've submitted to the government. These are not approved plans yet, but we're getting an idea of what districts are starting to say they need and what they want. And very much district to district varies, because, I mean, the needs and the resources are very different depending on what district you are in British Columbia. But certainly the two largest centers right now have sort of put forth their plans, and they're quite similar. I'll tell you about the VSB one.
There's deadlines for all of them.
Friday.
By the time we air this, all of them have to.
This is the deadline, yes. And we'll be hopefully speaking with Terry Mooring, the BCTF president, on, I'm filling in for Linda Steele on Friday. So,
Friday.
So she'll be there.
You're listening to this on Friday, but if you're listening on
Monday,
Monday,
it's this afternoon at 3. And if you're listening on Monday, on Monday I'll still be in for Linda all next week as well.
You'll tweet your interview with her, right?
That's what I will do.
Okay.
So for your son, for elementary school, it is the learning groups of maximum of 60. Kids will go back full-time, as mentioned by Dr. Henry, and then there will be that enhanced cleaning piece. The schedule won't necessarily vary, like it'll be in class in person for elementary schools, but the entries might stagger, right? So you might not have to be at school until 9.
That will make my kid happy.
Exactly.
How
right?
late could he go? 11?
I know.
12?
How is this going to work? So class size is a big piece. They're going to be addressing that in the next while, because that is obviously a huge piece of the puzzle. Class size, again, at the forefront, because trying to fit 30 kids in a classroom that's physical distancing, the math doesn't work. The areas don't work. So what they're now doing in both Surrey and Vancouver, the next step from the elementary piece is to contact parents and say, are you planning on sending your kid back to school? Because they need the time to plan how many kids are coming in the catchment, how many children are going to be a part of our program here, and how will we sort of set them up around the school in order to have the best distances in place. So staggered start and end times, different lunch times and recess and what have you. So lots of connecting with family to make sure that they can figure out physical distancing on the numbers piece. High school gets a little bit different. My son was so mad when I told him about this, because he just wants to go back to school, George. He wants to go back to school. He's not nervous about it. He wants to go to high school. Enough. He knows physical distancing. He understands what he's got to do. He's not afraid.
Actually, the worst year of high school.
Yeah, that's what I keep telling him. I'm like, dude, you're gonna miss one. This is the year. This is the year. And I told him it's not forever. It's just for now. So I'm gonna need you to calm down. He's like, can't I feel how I feel? Yes, you can, but you need to just calm down. Because
I'll tell you how you feel, kid.
So, for example, what Suzanne Hoffman said this morning, she used the example of a grade 9 student, and I'm going to read it right here from my notes because it's a little bit interesting. So this has not been approved by the Minister of Education nor Health yet, but this is what's been submitted. A grade 9 student would have 2 courses intensely per day that happens on a quarterly system in high school. So we're used to semesters where everything, it's 4 different classes a day, That's not going to be happening because you move too many classes that way. So
many semesters or something. Is that what it is?
Right. Quarterly. So it's like on a rotation. So morning class, let's say you go in grade 9, you're part of the morning class. You go in class for social studies. Then you have a window of time that's flex time to work on what might be an elective class that might not fall under the required academics. And then you go home and you do your second course of the day online, virtual with your school. So in the class. So half of the kids are in class in the morning. They go home in the afternoon. That other half goes in for the afternoon class. And that entire class is together online. So technically they are one, but it's sort of, you're the morning class for this semester. And then the next semester, you're the afternoon class, is what I understand.
And so, and high school students will rely more on online stuff than
online
elementary school kids.
And exactly. So high school students is a hybrid. There will be a hybrid plan put in place for elementary as well. That is yet to come, is our understanding. But this is the way to keep busy high schools from having all of the kids in the classroom physically at the same time. They're all still a part of that class. It's just 50-50 who's in the room at the time. And then for those who aren't adept at online learning, that need that in school or don't have a place to go, their safest place is actually in a school. Mm-hmm. Those kids will also have a possibility of being in an equity space in the high school. So there's going to be spaces set up that would otherwise be used for groups. Think music room or cafeteria space that's set aside for during class, that is equity space that will be online learning in the school environment, connected to the classroom where the other part of your class is. So it gets a little complex, and I think they're really thinking it through is kind of what I'm saying.
It's like a matrix.
They're trying to maximize space, maximize the connection for kids who really need it, and look to kids who don't struggle as much with online or home learning to be able to manage that for the greater good for this short period of time.
It's not the kids that struggle with home learning, it's the parents who struggle with the home learning. I mean,
but high school parents, not so much. It's the younger kids that the on-learn. No, but that's just it. If you're the parent that's struggling.
I know my kid's doing his work. I mean,
but if you're struggling with that, then the equity space is available for you. Yeah. So there's a way to find a way. I mean, it's not perfect.
Put a camera behind my kid, watching my kid be on camera to make sure that they're doing their work.
That's right.
Not lying in bed.
We're all ordering our Nest cameras.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Your Ring camera. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean,
that's the Coles Notes version.
That's good. I think for me, it's like, get this kid's back to school. I know there's risk and all that stuff, but I just think that the whole social thing, the physical fitness stuff, just being in the environment of education, this is imperative for the brain health of our kids, but also for their social, like for the future. I mean, how long can we go without, this has been like 6 months, really. They kind of went back in the end of the last year, but I didn't send my kid back because it was just like, and it was so mixed up and messed.
I did send mine back. And I think that's why he really wants to get back to school, because it was weird on the first day. He's like, it was weird. And then after that, he's like, no, it was normal.
Right. And the face masks are required? Face masks are required
in common areas, on buses, and anywhere that physical distancing can't be upheld, right? Like, so it's basically the general rule in public places and spaces in the majority of places. And I talked to my kid about, how do you feel about wearing a mask? He's like, I'm cool.
Yeah, my kid.
They're not going to be wearing them in classrooms. It's not an issue. It's going to be
how long they can wear them too. They wear them for hours. You're like, oh.
I had to do that the other day. I took my dad to an appointment. I had to take him out of the long-term care home for the very first time since before COVID, and had to, do a 45-minute trip out, sitting in a waiting area, then going into the doctor's office, then getting him into the doctor's, go to the other office, then get him around and get him back in the wheelchair taxi and get him back to the home. And that whole process, I wore a mask the entire time, probably 4 hours, 3.5, 4 hours. I, honest to God, forgot I was wearing it. And it was 34 degrees outside, hottest day of the year.
You got used to your glasses being fogged up. That'd be the new world.
You know what? I tucked them under and I just kind of went with it. I think I was just so stressed about the whole thing that I just was like, whatever.
You were only breathing in. You never breathed out all day.
No, not all day. I just, that was me.
Speaking of rules, though, we got something coming down tomorrow too about rules, right? We're going to get more strict, potentially.
Ooh. Thank you. Solicitor General Mike Farnworth is expected to make an announcement about enforcement around gatherings, people who are getting together in penthouse parties, gathering at nightclubs on a regular basis, and totally ignoring all the public health orders and being like petri dishes for COVID-19. There are 3,000 people isolating right now in our province by no fault of their own. Yeah. By no fault of their own, though, George. Can you imagine how pissed off would you be
if you happen to...
And
the weather's great outside, and you're like, God damn it.
Yeah.
So and so 3,000, and so the Ryan Reynolds thing didn't work. Didn't.
Well, we won't know for 2 weeks, right? Because
Okay.
we're in that incubation period. Hopefully people have started to learn the lesson. We have seen, I mean, we'll see what the numbers are in the next couple of days, but the biggest numbers were exactly 14 days out from the August long weekend. And so this next 2 weeks, let's see how we do. Hopefully people are being a little less cuckoo, but we got the last numbers. By the time you're watching it, I'll probably be one day off, but the last numbers, the real number that we're watching right now is hospitalizations. 10 in hospital, 4 in ICU. Keeping those numbers low is big. It's the R number that Dr. Henry always tells us about, the number of people infected by every test case positive. That is the one we really need to watch moving forward. So that's a piece. So that's what they're trying to do with enforcement, looking at possible fines, how significant those fines will be, how enforceable they'll be with regard to legal. I know.
You wouldn't have to do this, you guys.
I know.
I know. It's really,
I'm with
I
you.
hate this kind of police state kind of mentality, and I worry. And so just, if you can't listen to Ryan Reynolds, can you find somebody else that you might listen to? It's like he's a bit old for the young kids, you know.
Well, that's it.
He's a superhero now, and that's attracting 14-year-olds, and they follow the rules. It's the 20 to 25-year-olds that are a real problem, and God, I know as a marketing person, reaching that audience is really tough.
Yeah.
They don't consume media the way you would like them to do. So reaching out to them is tough, you know. So
it's the next level for sure.
I'm sure they're all watching and listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
Hey,
they listen to UnSpun.
Hey, 20 to 25-year-olds.
Yeah. Now that we're 12 minutes into our podcast and you stopped listening at 3 minutes. Yeah. Because nobody listens that long at that
But they
age.
do follow our tweets. I'm sure they're following my tweets, like with @George_.
See, Affleck. When you're that cool, how do you not follow along on Twitter? @Jody Vance on Twitter. Of course, you're following the Orca on Twitter as well. Lots of federal politics to cover off this week, dude. You called it.
Yeah, I did.
You did.
I mean, he took a bullet. I think, there's been a lot of speculation. This is Morneau, the Minister of Finance, stepping down, not only stepping down, but leaving, right? 100% leaving, which means
MP.
a by-election, which is not good for a minority government in Toronto Centre, I think he is.
Yep, Toronto Centre.
So, but and there's been speculation that he was pushed. I really believe that, because I said he would leave. I said he can't, either he won't run again or he'll take a bullet and step down so that Trudeau can say, there, cleaned up the mess. But of course we know that's not 100% true. There's still a bit of a mess, but it does take people's, it takes the attention off Trudeau to a certain degree. So, and I think Morneau said, and I'm good. I did this for 5 years now, and, I want to go back to the private sector or apply for that job with the UN, and, I'm good. A lot of these people get into politics who are begged to get into politics, and I think Trudeau and his network really, really pushed him hard to get involved. Are often short-term politicians. Once they get in there and they go, oh, this is not like the private sector at all.
Yeah, you told me about that. You told me about that with municipal politics.
Yeah, I mean, I think
when you run
did one
and you
term
think I can change everything, and then you get in and you're like, I can change nothing.
Yeah, or it's an effective way to win an election too. You bring in some high-profile people in your first sort of round where you think you can pull it off and you can really make some headway in your first term with the experienced team, and Morneau's background is very significant, and on the finance side and money side. So he obviously didn't see COVID coming, but
no,
it's common that these kinds of high profile individuals who are from the private sector don't last more than a term.
You called it.
Yeah.
But could we have possibly predicted proroguing?
Yeah, proroguing, which is basically the cancel culture of the government. Is like everything is canceled. Nothing's happening anymore. All of the bills, everything gone. Wipe the slate clean. I wish they could do that in Vancouver. The 200 motions that are sitting on a big filing cabinet somewhere in City Hall right now from this new council. But yeah, prorogue. Basically, this government, which is barely sitting already, and is a minority government, is now basically starting fresh in the fall.
September 23rd, when they were scheduled to come back, is what we've heard. And On the support side, on those who are looking at this as, well, it has to happen because the last throne speech didn't have COVID-19 in it. So what are they working from?
We don't even
So
have a budget, do we? It's still
nope,
yeah.
nope. And that's the two large pieces of this puzzle, and the budget, and then the throne speech, and then a confidence vote. Likely.
I don't think the NDP are going to bail on the Liberals.
Right? No, you don't, but you still got to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's happening. And also, as Pierre Poilievre has been doing, as he's tossing around papers that are full of redactions, saying how it kind of sweeps the WE scandal a little bit off the main boardroom table. It doesn't end the ethics committee's investigation into it, but it does move it off the front burner, certainly. So that's what the opposition is very upset about, because famously, Prime Minister Trudeau had said he would absolutely never prorogue Parliament, as Stephen Harper so politicized did, right? Like it's
what? A politician promised something and then changed their mind? I can't believe it. I know. So it's, and of course he doesn't want an election, but I also don't think the opposition wants an election either. I don't think anybody's ready for an election financially, given the COVID thing, and just in general. It takes years to build up your funding to run a campaign, provincially or federally, and none of the parties have the money right now to pull off a campaign of any substance. And so what that would mean is the incumbent always potentially can pull it off, right? So that would be the Liberals win. So I think that, the WE stuff, we'll see what happens, but I can't see an election happening, not this fall, but I could see it happening next spring.
I buried the lead on this one because what I really want to talk about is Chrystia Freeland.
Oh, yes. I was wondering why you forgot to mention that.
No, I was saving the best for last here because, I mean, when we talked about this last week.
Competent person with a great track record who's shown great leadership, all those things, probably the best person for the job.
Period.
But also, hey, so happens to be a woman, right?
Right. God, I love you, George-affleck. Not afraid of strong women, you.
It's irrelevant that she's a woman, but relevant that she's a woman, right? So, I have 3 sisters. I grew up with only women in my life. So.
And you're married to Amanda. So there's that. And you work with me. I'm the work wife. So, very, very proud of Chrystia Freeland. Was before this appointment, thought she was the only person. It would have been a massive mistake for anybody else to be appointed. Cannot believe the trash on social media about it. Guys.
What trash? Like saying she's not the right person for the job because of her skills in finance?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an argument, but here's how it works at government. You could be the minister of fishing, and you've never fished. It's not. You have a deputy minister. You have amazingly competent staff. Your job is kind of the CEO of the department. That's not doesn't mean you have to understand everything, but she certainly understands budgets because she's been in government. She's read the budget. She has to fight.
She negotiated the new NAFTA.
Yes, that's a little bit of a skill.
She knows what budgets are about.
And so I think this argument that you're not perfectly suited because you didn't work in finance or run a business to do. If you're a good leader and you're a good CEO kind of person and you know how to direct staff to get the job done, and competent staff, highly competent staff in finance, then that's all you need. It's all you need. And she's proven that she's a good leader. She knows how to run a department, and she knows how to negotiate, and she knows how to get shit done.
Exactly. Every morning on those first ministers meetings, as she runs them so adeptly while having everything else going on, and she takes the questions and she answers the questions and she puts back in their place the people that want to spin it into something, and she's like, no, stop that, about the US border, whatever. We will, I love the way she speaks. We will do whatever is necessary to protect Canadian interests and the health of Canada, and we will discuss the border. She is meticulous.
If only we had comedy shows in Canada that.
I know.
Oh, I guess we have.
This hour has 22 minutes. I'm available.
Yeah.
No. But I applaud that, as I do, and we'll get down south of the border to Kamala Harris. It's been a big week for women being elevated into roles that they absolutely 100% deserve. It's not about checking a box of diversity. That is my point on Chrystia Freeland. And you called it last week on the program. I was right there with you saying that's an obvious choice if and when Bill Morneau steps down. Let's go to City Hall. Let's go to the Vancouver City Hall in particular and talk a little bit about There's a Globe and Mail article that Francis Beulah wrote that you mentioned on your Twitter. And I thought it was fascinating how you have shone the light on what you've seen to be an issue in City Hall since your time there.
Yes. Well, this article that Francis wrote was about the challenge the city is now facing related to community amenity contributions, CACs, which are money you get from developers for when they develop stuff that is in, of scale that requires, a portion of the money to go to the city. To the whole point of a CAC was meant to deal with when the city is growing in a massive amount of growth. You need to provide amenities to the people who are going to be living in the city, whatever that might be. It didn't used to be housing until Vision got in and they added housing in as an amenity, which is sort of ironic because the point of a CAC, the original point of a CAC was amenity was meant to deal with growth, but adding growth to growth is not an amenity. It's actually contributing to the problem. Anyways, that's the whole argument that I always fought.
Good point.
Yes. So I would always argue that. And then there's development cost levies, which are what you get it's actually a mathematical equation per unit that pays for, so CACs pay for usually, community centers, parks, big infrastructure things.
Sometimes art installations.
Sometimes art, yep. It's actually laid out in each public hearing document. It literally specifically says what this money will go for. Right. And the DCLs is always this, sewer, water, it's really basics, electrical, whatever stuff, infrastructure, roads, very specific. CACs there are some flat pre-negotiated, like that. This is what you pay in parts of the city, but a lot of them are negotiated by staff with developers, and I don't like it because it really sets up a real challenging, conversations, and the staff are negotiating these things. And so for years we were getting hundreds of millions of dollars a year, hundreds. And I always argue that this is not something we should expect and assume we will continue, and that we should be careful about how we spend this money because we don't know what the future holds. And I can tell them, I would say for sure, this will not continue forever because as we know, the market goes up and down, and we should save for a rainy day. Much like Burnaby did that. They have a flat CAC program, and the money gets into it, and they save a lot of money, which now they are using in this time of crisis. Vancouver didn't, and we own our CACs are either tied to specific projects like housing, or they are to art or whatever. There's not a lot of cash set aside for miscellaneous. So right now we've gone from hundreds of millions of dollars down to this year we're looking at probably 30 million in CACs. So from 400 million to 30 million, it changes what the city can achieve. It has to be capital projects, so big projects. So the best example would be the viaducts. They're meant to come down next year in 2021. That's the year they're supposed to be dismantled. And they required hundreds of millions in CACs. And I said, I don't think this is a realistic plan. I said, this plan is relying on these amenity contributions that may not come. So if we're going to agree on taking down the viaducts, we need to agree on where the money will come from without the CACs. And then we will be more truthful.
Guaranteed money.
We will be more truthful to our voters, the people of the city, the residents, saying, this is going to cost $700 million to do this. And are you okay with us borrowing money if we don't get the CACs? But it was always reliant on these CACs. And now they're not getting the money. The developments are stopping. Developers are renegotiating and saying, I'm not going to give you this money. I can't, it doesn't make sense anymore. And so the viaducts is an example. Certainly the model that we voted on when I was there is absolutely not possible now. So I imagine the engineering staff are working on a redo of a proposal that will come to council to talk about the viaducts. What's the process now over the next 30 years? What is it? And then just even smaller projects, smaller developers. The debate about, there's this these conspiracy kind of things about developers and how they're evil and things like that. They're business people. They want to make a profit. Even the small guys, and even social housing, they are developers. Building stuff makes you a developer. So the fact that it costs so much to build a city, if you add in all the other fees and CACs and DCLs, it's very expensive to build in Vancouver. And so developers, small and large, are saying, you know what, stop. Whoa, we can't do this. So therefore, guess what happens? We get less built, less homes for people of all levels, of all incomes. And
everything stalls.
And we end up in a bigger problem than we are now because the city didn't do it right, and they should have put the money into real estate, strategic real estate buys that would have provided a place for the federal and provincial government and the private sector, like South Falls Creek, which is all city land that was developed with partners, not city money, it was city land. We could have done more of that, and we didn't, and we used up the money on all these pet projects and things that aren't now happening. And so this council is dealing with not only a revenue shortfall in general, but are looking at their big projects are not going to be possible. So what's this?
And having a standoff with developers, like staring them down, going, "We're not going to lower those fees," and developers are like, "Then we're not building it."
Then I won't build. And that is the exact wrong way to do it. What they should say is, you know what? Let's renegotiate those rates and let's speed up the process.
Let's get out of our own way. As we keep saying over and over and over again, why are we in our own way when it comes to putting the right path to creating such necessary infrastructure and builds in our city? It's just bizarro.
100%. And anybody who believes that developers are making too much money, to explain how business operates, any business, small or large, it's you have your profit, right? And so the cost of whatever it is that you're offering has, whatever costs. And so building a building, if it costs more to build it, then your margin of what you accept as profit shrinks potentially. Sure, market value might be inflated, but it really generally 20% is what they're looking for profit. And that's fine. That's generally what most businesses like. Restaurants, if they get 5% profit, they're happy in the best of times. So, but then they take that 20% profit and they invest it in future housing, or they're not just putting it in their pocket. They literally are small and large developers. Now let's think
feeding the economy.
They need a profit to sustain themselves as a business, and any business does. That's what you do with your profit.
And here, can you imagine? We are sitting in a time during a pandemic where money is and budgets are just crazy, and we're trying to unpack what an acceptable profit margin is for any business. Like it should be, but if you squeeze that business, ultimately someone's going to pay, and the end result is more expensive rentals or properties. If you squeeze that, if a developer has to sit on a property for a year, they got to make that money up. If it sits for years, they can't get the permitting.
Absolutely, and developers will potentially intentionally sit on a land until the market bounces back.
Sure,
which is their right. But if you make it impossible on every level for them to build, and the staff really have this, and the previous council and this current council seem to believe that the base cost of building something has nothing to do with the end cost. I don't understand this mindset. It drives me nuts, because of course it does. If it's more expensive to do something, it's going to be more expensive at the end. And and that's where we are right now. And so nothing's going to get built in the next 5 years. It's like it'll be limited.
Speaking of things that are driving us nuts.
Yes.
Did you get to hear the conversations had this week about Stanley Park? I had Bruce Allen on.
John Cooper.
Then John Cooper came on right after Bruce Allen. And you know what? Twitter's really loud. But when you open up the phone lines and people call in, lighting up the phone board, we did not screen those calls. We don't have enough people on hand to screen calls, to screen out the people that are pro close the lanes or close the seawall. It was overwhelmingly open up the seawall to leisurely cyclists, please.
I don't understand the law. Here's a little PR advice for this Cope Green Alliance.
Free advice
from George-affleck and Curve Communications. All they have to do to shut up people who are really angry is just say, you know what, ride your bike along the seawall too. Take the hill, or take along the sidewalk along the seawall too. It's fine, because we've been doing that for years with no problem. If half the bikes go up the hill, half the bikes go around, fantastic. Everybody will go, oh, okay, thanks. And I, as a cyclist with my kids who would always do Stanley Park in the summer, now he doesn't want to go up that hill. No. And I don't want to walk for half an hour up a hill with him.
I don't want to ride inside the park. I can go inside Pacific Spear Park in the trees. I want to see the view. I want to go around.
Yes. And if you're worried about cyclists and pedestrians in that narrow part, then dismount, walk your bike for this part, and that
walk your bike
too. But it's not a problem. I've been doing it for years, and I've never at the highest volumes possible of the seawall, and it's not a problem.
And but wait, that's the argument, George. They're saying these are the highest ever. This is the busiest the park's ever been, George.
I thought John Cooper's point to you on that when he talked to you was like, this argument is absolutely untrue, because the actual total volume, bike arguments aside, volume of people coming into the park is down significantly, which means down revenue for aquarium, revenue for the restaurants, revenue for parking. These numbers are way, way down on all aspects, and discouraging anybody from coming to the park right now for whatever they want to do is nonsense. And
that's why the data is not in, George, because the data is there are no cruise ships, there's no tourism, the borders are closed, there are not at an all-time high in Stanley Park. And we're open up to phase 3 in COVID-19. People have totally gotten used to how to manage their space. There are seawalls that run all over this city. Only a portion of a seawall goes around one way around Stanley Park, and probably is the least busy of all of the seawalls, given the fact that intercity transportation, I've been on seawalls constantly this summer riding my bike around, and we are all navigating it just fine, thank you. Open the seawall in Stanley Park. So there you go, your curb communications advice. Open it to everybody. We're short on time and long on subject matter, so I'm going to leave this with you for my middle this week. Yes. My column this week, George-affleck, I admit I was wrong.
This is unprecedented.
The Orca.ca, guys. Read the middle. I was wrong, and I admit it in so many words in print.
Might be your most read column ever.
See you later.
Yeah.